The Unspoken Pact, a bold and beautiful legacy forged in tragedy. In the glittering, high-stakes world of Los Angeles fashion, where empires are built on silk and secrets, the names Spencer and Forrester are synonymous with power, passion, and a history of intertwined destinies. At the heart of this delicate ecosystem stood Liam Spencer, a man perpetually caught between loyalties, whose very existence seemed to balance the volatile legacies of two titanic families. But an unseen enemy was stirring, a silent tremor that would not only shake his life to its foundations, but redefine the very meaning of love, loss, and legacy for everyone in his orbit. The first tremor, an insidious whisper. It began as a ghost, a flicker-born anomaly in the marathon of his life. During a late-night strategy meeting, under the sterile, unforgiving glare of the Spencer publication's boardroom lights, Liam's hand betrayed him. A subtle, almost imperceptible tremor shook his fingers as he reached for a crucial document. He convinced himself it was merely exhaustion, a physical manifestation of the adrenaline that had fueled him for months while wrangling the colossal Spencer Forrester legacy. He was the bridge, the peacemaker, the executive tasked with navigating the treacherous currents of family ambition and corporate warfare. A shaking hand was a small price to pay. But the ghost refused to be exorcised. The tremors returned, gaining confidence. What was once a subtle flicker became a defiant shake, then a violent shudder. In one pivotal conference, as he presented a new campaign, his hand spasmed with such force that a stack of important papers went flying across the polished mahogany table, scattering like fallen leaves in a sudden gale. The room fell silent. In that moment of stark, public vulnerability, the truth could no longer be denied. Something inside him, deep and insidious, had shifted. His unwavering champion, Hope Logan, saw the fear he tried to hide behind a strained smile. With a gentle but firm resolve, she insisted on immediate tests, her love a shield against his growing dread. Across the city, Steffi Forrester, a woman forever torn between her loyalty to the Forrester dynasty and her own simmering, guilt-laced devotion to Liam, felt the news like a seismic shock. Pressing past their complicated history, she urged him to seek a specialist, someone far from the familiar, gossip-riddled halls of Los Angeles Memorial, where secrets had a shorter shelf life than a seasonal fashion line. The Mavericks gamble and a fateful diagnosis. Their search led them to a clandestine, off-the-record medical wing, a place whispered about in elite circles, where hope was bought at a premium. There, under the unblinking fluorescence of medical machinery, the diagnosis arrived like a gunshot, shattering the fragile quiet of their lives. A hidden tumor, a malignant mass, nested deep within the intricate folds of his brain. It was aggressive, expanding with a malevolent intention, its insidious tendrils already straddling both hemispheres. It was not just a threat to his career, it was an assault on the very essence of who he was. The prognosis was a litany of despair. Conventional treatments, chemo, radiation, standard neurosurgery, were presented as options, but each carried risks so grave they might as well have been poison. The location of the tumor made every conventional approach a gamble with his memories, his personality, his very soul. As days bled into nights of whispered consultations and anguished meetings, a single, desperate opportunity surfaced. Dr. Veronica Hale, a name both revered and feared in the medical community. A brilliant but maverick neurosurgeon, she operated on the bleeding edge of regulatory approval, a lone wolf unwilling to be shackled by convention. She had pioneered an experimental procedure, an invasive, high-stakes approach so untested that the FDA had never touched it. The technique involved the precise ablation of the tumor's core using ultrasonic microprobes, guided by real-time neural mapping. This was combined with a novel oncolytic agent, a designer virus, infused directly into the resection cavity, programmed to hunt and destroy any remaining cancer cells. Early animal trials had hinted at miraculous recoveries. Human trials were non-existent. Dr. Hale, armed with a reputation for both brilliance and controversy, offered Liam a single, coveted slot in her unsanctioned trial. The contract, however, was as steely as her gaze. It demanded Liam's immediate consent and a comprehensive waiver, a legal fortress promising to absolve her and the institution of any liability, no matter the outcome. Hope and Steffi confronted Liam in his study, the late afternoon sun casting long, somber shadows across the room. The paper lay between them, its clinical text a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil that charged the air. Paper in hand, Liam's signature would become a pact with the unknown. Hope's eyes glistened with unshed tears, her hand trembling as she pressed it to his, a silent plea. Steffi's jaw was set in steel, her gaze a warring mixture of betrayal, fear, and a deep, buried love. Liam hesitated for only a moment, but it was long enough for the full, crushing weight of his mortality to settle in his chest. Then, with a breath that felt like his last, he signed. The longest night, a fall into silence. The preoperative ritual was hushed and solemn. In the sterile antechamber to the operating room, Hope gently stroked Liam's hair as he drifted under the creeping hold of anesthesia, whispering memories of sunlit mornings at the beach. Steffi stood beside her, their old rivalries dissolved by a shared terror, and clutched Hope's hand as they watched him vanish behind the imposing OR doors. Dr. Hale simply nodded, her expression one of clinical detachment. For 8 agonizing hours, time skewed. For the 2 women in the waiting room, every tick of the clock was an eternity. They existed in a bubble of heart-wrenching suspense, their world reduced to the rhythmic beat of a distant monitor and the whir of surgical tools they could only imagine. Then, a report from the OR. The procedure had gone according to plan. The tumor's core was excised, the oncolytic agent released precisely where needed. Liam's vitals remained within acceptable ranges. A wave of cautious optimism, fragile and precious, washed over them. But it was a false dawn. Within hours, an alarm shattered Hope's fragile relief. Liam's brain, swollen and battered by the radical surgery, had gone into crisis. Intracranial pressure spiked. The interventions meant to control it faltered. Doctors and nurses swarmed his ICU room in a flurry of controlled panic, but despite an emergency decompression, the damage was catastrophic. The steady, rhythmic beep on the monitor faltered, stretched, and then became a single, unending, soul-crushing tone. Liam had flatlined, slipping from a deep coma into the irreversible silence of brain death. In that sterile ICU room, surrounded by humming machines and the sharp odor of antiseptic, Hope and Steffi faced a new, horrifying battle. One for Liam's legacy and for control of the vast Spencer Forrester empire he had left behind. A legacy in chaos, the vulture circle. With Liam unconscious and then gone, the corporate war that had simmered for months erupted into full-scale conflict. The truce, held together by Liam's presence, shattered. Rich Forrester, ever the pragmatist, saw a chance to reclaim absolute design dominance for his family. Bill Spencer, his grief warped into a ferocious, protective ambition, maneuvered with ruthless precision to cement his son's legacy, tightening his grip on half the shares. Attorneys drafted feints and counterfeits of Liam's will, each side claiming entitlement to the Forbes top-earning soap opera heir's throne. The battleground shifted from the boardroom to the legal arena. Hope, named medical proxy by Liam in a confidential directive, found herself at odds with Steffi, whom Liam had entrusted with broader stewardship of his affairs in his absence. Their alliance, once uneasy, now forged in shared love and desperation, faced its toughest trial. Together, they navigated the labyrinthine demands of lawyers and the cold, unfeeling judgment of the hospital ethics committee. The law recognized Liam's right to refuse extraordinary measures, but the unapproved nature of his surgery cast doubt on the mandate to preserve his life at all costs. Yet Hope clung to hope, every fiber of her being revolted at the thought of pulling the plug. Steffi, ever more pragmatic, had to remind her that the man they loved, the spirit behind Liam's steady gaze, might already be gone. The tensions cracked through their partnership as Bill Spencer arrived at the hospital, flanked by high-priced lawyers and a camera crew, eager for a sensational update that would serve his own narrative. He offered Hope the world, control of Liam's stakes in Spencer publications, immunity from legal reprisal, even a pact to support the Logan legacy. On the other side, Ridge cut in on Steffi's side, promising to elevate Forrester Creations to new heights in Liam's absence. Loyalty blurred beneath corporate promises, and Hope and Steffi sensed the new subpower tightening around their decisions. The choice was no longer just about love. It was about power, money, and the future of two dynasties. The weight of grief. A new triangle forms. The funeral service, set against the backdrop of the Forrester mansion's lush gardens, was meant to celebrate Liam's life. Instead, it exploded into a crucible of raw emotion and unspoken longing. As mourners gathered beneath a sky heavy with tears, Wyatt Spencer arrived, the weight of Liam's absence pressuring every step he took. His life had too often felt overshadowed by Liam's accomplishments, and now, even in death, his brother's presence was a monumental force. He found himself pulled into Hope's orbit by the undeniable gravity of shared sorrow. Wyatt, whose return had awakened feelings she thought long buried, and Carter, whose steadfast devotion offered a new kind of promise, flanked Hope. She felt the presence of three men: Liam, whose final act of love still held her heart; Wyatt, a man bound to her by a complex history and now a profound loss; and Carter, a beacon of stability in a world turned upside down. Hope's eulogy was a testament to Liam's courage, how he fought the unseen tumor with a hero's resolve, how he'd refused to let fear dictate his final days. Her voice cracked only once, when she recalled their last moments, standing by his bedside as he drifted into the surgical coma that would become permanent. Wyatt, standing just behind her, felt her words like a fist to his chest. He longed to reach out, to hold her hand as they had once shared after nights of teenage upheaval, but Hope's grief seemed to erect a barrier more impenetrable than any corporate fortress. Carter Walton hovered nearby, his expression a mixture of sympathy and frustration as he watched Hope lean on Ridge and even Steffi, but not on him. Later, as the guests dispersed into small clusters of consolation, the tension between Hope, Wyatt, and Carter crystallized into agonizing clarity. Hope was torn between the memory of the man she had loved and the men who now offered to bandage her wounds. The final choice, a solitary path. That evening, Hope retreated to the Logan family beach house, a place where she and Liam had forged countless memories, sunlit laughter, whispered dreams under starlit skies, promises sealed, and sand castles washed away by the tide. Wyatt followed, compelled by a need to ensure she was not alone. The rhythmic pounding of waves against the shore matched the pounding of their hearts as they crossed the threshold. Inside, Hope sank onto the weathered sofa, its white paint peeling like fragile hope itself, and Wyatt sat beside her, offering quiet comfort. He remembered how, years ago, he had loved her with a puppyish devotion, how Liam's shadow had loomed large over their fledgling romance. Now, with Liam gone, those memories carried new weight and an echo of love that might have been reclaimed, a second chance forged in tragedy. Hope closed her eyes, leaning her head against Wyatt's shoulder, and something in him unclenched, the guilt that had bound him to Liam's legacy, the resentment that had severed his own hope for happiness. In that moment, he was not the brother who survived. He was the man who could survive for her. Their fragile peace was shattered by Carter's arrival. Learning of Wyatt's intrusion through a terse text from Hope, he arrived determined to stand by her until she chose him or shut him out completely. He found them side by side, a tableau of intimacy that spoke louder than words. "Hope, are you okay?" he asked softly, but Wyatt's steady gaze met his before Hope could answer. "She's fine," Wyatt interjected, his voice low but firm. Carter bristled, pain flashing across his features. "Hope's not your responsibility." Wyatt's eyes darkened. "Then let me be hers." The words, simple and unguarded, landed between them like a challenge. Hope looked from Wyatt to Carter, torn by gratitude for Carter's constancy and an unbreakable history with Wyatt that now blazed with unexpected passion. After the speech at the gala, guests had mingled, and Hope found herself cornered by both men. one approaching from her right with a gentle question about the Foundation's next steps, the other from her left with an offer to walk her home. Hope, caught in their converging paths, took a breath and let out a small laugh, half wearied, half tearful. "Boys," she said, raising her hands in mock surrender. "You can't both win." Wyatt and Carter exchanged a tense glance. Wyatt's lips quirked into a sad smile. "Then maybe I'm not trying to win," he said softly. Carter's eyes narrowed. "Then what are you trying to do?" Hope looked between them, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm trying to survive." In that moment, the world shifted. No longer a binary choice, but a testament to her own strength. She realized that Liam's love, like a guiding star, still illuminated her path, and that she owed him the courage to choose not out of fear or obligation, but out of her deepest conviction. Whether that led her back to Wyatt, forward with Carter, or alone, she would carry Liam's memory as both anchor and sail. As she turned and walked away from them both, toward the moonlit ocean, the love quadrangle that had defined Spencer Logan, history shifted once again. It was no longer just a battle for hearts, but a testament to forgiveness, to growth, and to the enduring power of love in all its forms. The legacy of Liam Spencer would not be one of tragedy, but one of profound, resilient, and beautiful survival. Thanks for watching this videos. Please hit the subscribe button for more updated news.